At a family dinner, my brother smirked. Mom and Dad said I'm moving into your house. I, the daughter they always used, smiled. Funny, I sold it for $740,000 last week. Then I slid the papers across the table. His face turned white. I'm Piper, 34 years old, a real estate agent in the northern suburbs of Dallas. My life has been built from every dollar I earned myself, those early mornings when I got up at 5 a.m. to meet clients before the sun rose, and the late nights returning home long after the streets had gone quiet while I fought to hold my ground in a fiercely competitive market. My younger brother, Brandon, 32, lived in an entirely different world, one where every problem was rescued by our parents before it could turn into a real consequence. From a young age, I understood that if I wanted something, I had to find a way to get it myself. At 12, I saved every dollar from mowing neighbors' lawns to buy the sneakers I wanted. Meanwhile, all Brandon had to do was frown in a store, and minutes later, our mom would pull out her wallet. My parents always said Brandon was sensitive and needed more support, as if weakness were a reason to be prioritized. In high school, I asked to work part-time at a bakery to save for a laptop for my senior year. Every evening, I came home smelling of flour and sugar, but the pride of earning it myself made it worth it. Brandon was different when he said he wanted the latest phone. My dad bought it immediately so he could stay in touch. No one asked him to do anything in return. The difference carried into college. I chose a public university in Austin, juggling classes and a job in the administrative office, while also carrying student loans because my parents said I was capable of handling it. 2 years later, Brandon enrolled in an expensive private university in California. All his expenses, tuition, dorm, car, were fully covered by our parents, yet, Brandon dropped out halfway through, claiming he hadn't found his passion while I worked my way up from the lowest positions at a real estate firm, saving every bit of commission to pay off debt and build my client base. Brandon bounced from job to job. He tried bartending, but got fired for giving free drinks to friends. He worked at a cell phone store until inventory shortages got him dismissed. He even enrolled in an online marketing course, but quit after a week because it was too boring. My parents never let Brandon feel real pressure when he was short on rent, they paid it immediately. When his old truck broke down, they bought him a brand new pickup, saying it was so their son had reliable transportation to work. They paid off his credit card debt twice, following it with lectures on responsibility, always ending the same way, by pulling out their wallets. Some nights, I sat at my desk sorting through stacks of files, typing while my mom called to tell me about Brandon's latest hardship. She always ended with, "You know, family has to help each other in hard times." I would just give a dry laugh and change the subject. Over the years, I learned to swallow the sense of unfairness, but it smoldered like a live coal. By the time I was 33, I had paid off my student loans and saved enough to start looking for my first home. Meanwhile, Brandon had just lost his sales assistant job because the environment wasn't a good fit, and was living with a new girlfriend. The gap between us had never been clearer. I had broken free from my family's financial limits while he remained stuck in the same cycle of dependence and shelter. I don't hate Brandon. I'm just tired of realizing that my parents have never held the two of us to the same standard. I've had to push myself to prove my worth while he simply shows up to receive everything. In the years after Brandon dropped out of college, our lives veered in completely opposite directions. I stayed in Dallas, working as a real estate agent while taking advanced courses to earn professional certifications. Every morning, I ran a few laps around the neighborhood park, grabbed a to-go coffee, and opened my laptop early to answer client emails. Every dollar I made already had a purpose: paying off debt, saving, investing in my work. Brandon, on the other hand, came back to Texas from California with no degree and no clear plan. He tried working at a sporting goods distributor, but quit after 3 months because he couldn't stand the manager. Then came a string of temp jobs, from delivery driver to event assistant, but each ended quickly with the same excuse: it wasn't the right fit. What I noticed was that he never truly put in effort to find the next job. Every time he lost work, Brandon went straight back into our parents' arms. My dad pulled from his retirement savings to cover the rent on a luxury apartment. Brandon insisted on keeping because he didn't want to live in a dump. My mom sent him a few $100 a month so he could eat properly. When the pickup truck our parents bought him needed a new transmission, they not only paid for the repairs, but also handed him extra cash so he wouldn't worry. I knew those weren't small amounts, because every time they helped Brandon, they told me about it over the phone, almost as if they wanted my approval. But instead of supporting them, I just felt the same old unfairness creeping back. When my own car broke down in college, I spent 4 months riding the bus in the brutal Texas heat to save enough for repairs for Brandon. All it took was a single phone call. I still remember one Friday night when I was organizing client files and Mom called her. Voice sounded urgent, like something serious had happened. "Piper, I don't know what to do with Brandon. He's 3 weeks behind on rent, and the landlord's threatening to evict him." I asked, "So what are you going to do?" "We'll cover it for him, and he promised he'll pay it back next month." I bit my lip, keeping my tone steady. "Mom, how many times has he promised that? Has he ever actually paid you back?" She went quiet for a long moment before changing the subject. I knew refusing to help Brandon was unthinkable for my parents, and pointing out the truth would only make them defensive and protective of him. By the time I turned 34, things at work had started looking up. I was assigned high-value clients, and my commissions grew significantly. My savings finally reached the number I had dreamed of. I began house hunting, not for a convenient apartment, but for a single-family home with a backyard where I could plant lavender and adopt a dog. Meanwhile, Brandon had spun himself into another cycle. He moved in with his girlfriend, Tiffany, in Fort Worth. She worked as a waitress and didn't make much, but Brandon still spent money like he was living with mom and dad. A month later, Tiffany called my mother in tears, saying Brandon wasn't paying his share of the rent and had even used her credit card to buy new speakers and book a beach trip with his friends. When that relationship ended, he went right back to our parents again. This time, they rented him an apartment near downtown Dallas, so it'd be easier to find a job.